Howdy y'all, John Daniels from the Daniels Woodland Show. Some of you guys out there are always wondering, hey, where you guys get all that crazy old stuff? You know, like the old antiques and things. Well, today we're gonna go up in the hills up there and we're gonna visit this old walnut factory where they used to harvest walnuts, cook them, and then de-shell them and package them for, you know, people to eat and things all around the world. So this particular place we're going up there, we got full salvage rights on all these buildings that are fixing to get tore down. They're gonna tear it all out to put in grape vineyards. But what's really cool about that is it was done in the 1920s and 1930s. So it's almost 100 years of cool history that's gonna be crushed and burnt and thrown away. So we're gonna go up there and salvage just about everything we can find, from old tennis shoes to clothes to old machinery. So come with us and take a look at the cool stuff we're gonna find today. Cool part of doing what we do is out here in wine country. As you can see, we're in the heart of wine country. There's open land as far as your eye can see. Used to be old cattle ranches and farming, so there's always tucked away in some corner, pretty much in any direction, there's an old barn, and that old barn's full of the absolute honey hole treasure of rusty gold. So we're gonna go out to a honey hole that I found that's way out in the hills. It was built in the 1920s, and it's a almond and walnut processing plant, but it might as well be a gold processing plant because all the belts and pulleys and gears and things are all still in the building, and they're all made out of wood. So we're gonna go out and take all that down before it goes to the dump. Out here we got a couple guys already tearing down the buildings before the bulldozers show up. So he's already hauled a couple truckloads of tin. Now we have these really cool chutes and type of things that are on his trailer. We'll go out there and take a look. Conveyor belt, old pulleys, troughs. On that side, come on this side. So these conveyor belts all interlock and go all over the place. And that other chute would dump into this chute, which would feed the hopper to something else. So we're gonna make it look like it's processing rock to get all the gold out of it. But this is what they would have built back in the day. So check this out. Under this old building, I think we found Grandpa's moonshine. He's been sipping back on the old bottle. Yeah, I know Grandpa's been out there. He's telling the old lady up at the house, hey, I'll be out there working, and he's back there. He comes back in there out like this. All right, so here you can see that we can turn this into an old trommel or something. You know, if you watch the old Gold Rush TV shows and stuff, you'll see that they have big, gigantic one of these. So we can make it look like it's, you know, peeling out a bunch of rock. So you can see all their water lines and stuff. They wanted to insulate it, so they just wrapped an old feed sack all around it like that. Gave me a great idea. So when we decorate, that's how they used to do it: baling wire and feed sacks. If you look around, you can see evidence of old walnut shells, and that's evidence of the work they used to do here. And all the rats and stuff love it because they can pack it away and have nuts for the winter. Yeah, there's some old walnuts in there. You can see down here on the bottom from when they close the plant. If you look real close, you could see the walnuts actually used to heat up in this heater, and they used to blow hot air through here, and they'd have like a fire inside of that, whatever the heck that is, and then the big blowers would blow the air through and dry out the green nut, because it's green when it comes off the tree. And then this sort of spins and rips the husk off. And then it goes on a conveyor, drops into these hoppers, and then they pump in hot air from here. They pump in hot air down this culvert inside these bins. Now, once they're dry to a point, I'm not sure what that is, but once they're dry, they open these chutes, the walnuts roll down into this conveyor belt, and down the line they go, up into the bucket conveyor and into that building, into these hoppers for storage. People that used to work here must have been real short. So this is the house they're gonna be bulldozing, but we're gonna be salvaging all this redwood out of this house. So this house was constructed back in the 20s and early 30s. You know, back before there was a Home Depot or Lowe's. They had to truck this stuff in by mule and cart. And some Model Ts and Model As trucking up the road. There were no stores to go buy this. Just small lumber stores. They had to make everything right here. But this probably came over by train or by boat from the mountains. And they brought it here and built the house. Built all this infrastructure we're gonna take down. Probably took the family lifetimes to build. And this is what they call single wall construction. This cracks me up. This whole wall, on all the walls in this entire house were built single wall, which means they're not framed. They're built like a fence. But as you can see, it's as thick as a board. There's no 2x4 construction with paneling. It's just a fence with a darn roof on it. It's pretty weird. It's amazing it's still standing. But look on this side. It looks like a fence. And this is old redwood. This is the kind of stuff that's absolutely perfect with this stuff's no knots, it's all clear. So this gives you an idea how they used to think. Use whatever you have, okay, as filler. Well, concrete was really expensive and they had to truck it from way from town. So this gives you an idea how they used to build. An old rusty, looks like a part off of a Model A or a Model T. Basically they stuck that in there to help take up the room so they didn't need as much concrete and all kinds of pieces of rock. But that's the original thing. It's almost 100 years old. And they didn't have building permits and they didn't have inspectors back in the day. And this was built, you know, there was Indians and stuff in the hills still. So a long time ago. Check it out. It's kind of sketchy looking. Yeah. What's funny is you have, you know, the guy had a 2x4 and it was too short, so they took another 4x4 and then a rock and had it all kind of like precariously sitting there. And the whole foundation of the whole house is just stacked up rocks and pieces of 2x4. And it's amazing it stood all these years. That's why we have building codes now. So up here you can kind of see, we tore back the drywall a little bit. You can see the rough sawn 2x4s. The whole roof of this thing's all redwood planks. So it's built really hardy up in there. And the wood's almost in perfect condition. So we're gonna get all that down when the house comes down. So this is how they heated the place. You know, they didn't have electric heaters and stuff. They had old, go chop some firewood, throw it in there, and warm up the house. And then up here they can cook, like, you know, they can make teas and coffee and maybe even a pot of beans. So that's the house. Now we'll go over to the other shed and you guys can see some more cool stuff over there. So here we got the tin mostly pulled off this building. So now we're ready to start salvaging some of the wood and some of the components. And you can see a bucket conveyor right there, how they work. They would pick up down here and lift way up and dump into the trough up there. But this whole thing is all powered by a Model A engine. The kind you used to have the crank start like this with an old crank and get it running. And they run a belt off of that, and that powered this whole system. Take a look. So this is the original crank handle off of Model A. You know, the kind you used to have the hand start like this and get it going. You know, like chitty chitty bang bang. It would spin all these pulleys, which were connected with conveyor belts, and then it would run this whole system all via the Model A engine. And this is pulled right out of the car, set right up on blocks. You still have the original brake levers and things like that. It's pretty funny, but you know what? It worked, and it worked for many, many years. So here you can see it's belt driven off the back of the engine, so it's pretty much a direct drive, which spins this belt, and then these belts line up to the belts up there, which power all the whole darn shooting match. How cool is that? So we're gonna put this back into our, you know, if we ever build like a 1920s gold mining theme, this is gonna be our power plant to look at. It's a pretty cool piece of history. Come down here, I want to show you some hillbilly engineering at its best. Metal oil drum full of concrete. It works just like a sonotube, only it's metal casing. Very cool, very effective. This is probably Grandpa's work garage. Now, I'm going to show you how they used to store things. You know, they didn't have all those special little hooks and trays and things to have all their little, you know, nuts and bolts and little special things hanging. So check it out. They made their own rack, you know, to house that nut that you might need, because you can't go to Home Depot to buy that nut. So if it came off of a piece of equipment, they saved it there for later. Here, these are the buckets off the conveyor belt over there. The bucket conveyor. So they use those as storage bins and then put all their little special tools and things they need for later. This is their own hardware store. Okay, someone obviously came through and picked this place before we got here, but I bet you can't guess what was hanging right there. If you guessed the saw, then you guessed right. Double-handed buck saw. So this is another bird's eye view of some of the equipment they had in here, which later on it was retrofitted with some electric motors, but originally it all ran off of that Model A engine. I'm not sure what happened over here, but this looks like a big blower system that ran off of the belt. And it wasn't, this is probably original because it's not electric. And it runs off the belt and it looks like a big blower which would blow air or whatever around. But you can see these cool looking belts and stuff. It's really cool. Really cool stuff. This belt is made of leather. So I tell you how old that is. Old leather belt. I mean, look at this place. You know, back in the 20s, if you were caught wearing these, you might as well have been naked. What do you think? We'll take these back and we'll use them in the shooting gallery on the clothesline. Way cool. I reckon that's where the old clothes came from. Now, they call these trunks because they used to strap on the back of a car. That's where the car trunk came from. It came from the trunks that they used to strap on the back of the car, and later that became the compartment in your car. It's called a trunk. It's because of the old days. Oh man, look at that. It's probably an old Model T or a Model A wrench. I'll take it with me right now so it doesn't get buried. Front might look good in this too. So that concludes our tour. You know, some of you guys were wondering where we get our cool old stuff. You know, this was someone's livelihood back in the day. They put their blood, sweat, and tears and probably all the money they made to build this infrastructure. So we're going to try to take this down in such a way where we can preserve a little bit of history, tell a little fun story with it, and so that way generations can remember this stuff. So here we have a whole truckload of stuff that the guys will probably just throw away, but this is cool stuff that Ron and I keep for our shooting galleries, and you know, when we decorate an old scene or something. We found the dresses, we found the knickerbockers, we found some old Red Wing shoes, we found an old doctor's bag, you know, things like this that we would decorate the shooting galleries with. This is gold for us.